Welcome back to Coast. Jerem here, Ed there. The little bad joke that we say every time. Rhodey, California, Coast to Coast. That's the name. Don't wear it out. Awful dad jokes to start. Today, we are going over our 2026 draft class. So we're doing a summer scouting series, more or less, as FLSE would say. Connor and Trevor. We're just trying to get like them. Summer scouting. We're going over QBs 2026. To be completely transparent, and I don't think that Manning is coming out in 2026. We think that he'll be a 2027 guy just because he doesn't need to rush, man. He can make another, $5 million at Texas. And yeah, I know there's 150, $300 million guaranteed or whatever it's going to be with the quarterback contracts in 5-7 years, but I don't know. I don't think the Mannings are worried about that. They know he's going to make his money. Yeah, Arch might be number one, might be number 10, or number 8, I should say. That's another thing that I should have referenced. We're doing 8
Yeah,
quarterbacks in our
we
2026.
are. Yes. And I think the other important part of that is what we had talked about before this too. A lot of this is game tape that we're going over that is the basis of our rankings. And Arch still doesn't have a ton of game tape. Like we had discussed, like he had that half of football that he came in for and a little bit of mop up duty and really only had the 3 starts. And those 3 starts were against marginal defenses. So
Yeah,
as much as we think he's what he's billed to be, like he's obviously like a next level talent. That's why he's talked about as much as he is.
of course.
He's a Manning, and then he clearly has athletic gifts from his mother because he is far better athlete than any of the Mannings have ever been. So like, there's a reason why he is who he is.
Allegedly, it skipped a generation. So apparently, Archie, I wasn't old enough to watch Archie back in the day, but apparently, Archie was really athletic. So,
Yeah, sure, you could say that.
Peyton, yeah, I mean, obviously, what is.
In comparison,
Yeah.
the tape's not that impressive.
But allegedly, it skipped a generation per the Mannings. Eli and Peyton
Yeah.
got shafted. Archie gave Arch.
So grandma's an athlete.
Yeah, grandma's an athlete, it sounds like. But yeah, you're 100% right. There's no tape, really. It's marginal defenses, and then go be the number one pick next year, right? Now, the stipulation is if he wins the Heisman, he will probably be the number one overall pick next year. It all hinges on how his season went. But if they're not happy with how it went, realistically, he's probably going to be a 2027. But that's why we kept him off our list. Obviously, he'd be pretty high, but I don't know. There's an asterisk next to the Manning name. So what we're going to do to start is we're going to go 8 to 5, our top 8. And full transparency, our lists are quite different.
Yeah.
I'm a traits guy, and Ed just likes pure talent because you'll see what I mean when we get to it. But do you want to start with your top 8 and then, or not top 8, sorry, your top 8 to 5, and then I'll say my top
Yeah,
8 to 5, and we'll go from there? Or actually,
absolutely.
sorry, I'll start with because we did a little pre-production. We're evolving. I'll go with my top 8 to 5, and then you'll go with your top 8 to 5, and then we'll just kind of yap about that because, again, our lists are quite different. Carson Beck's my number 8. Nico Iamaleava is my number 7. John Mateer is my number 6, and Sam Levitt is my number 5. Your 8 to 5.
Yeah, my 8 to 5 only slightly different. I watched Miller Moss as opposed to Carson Beck. That was one of our things that we did do. We did each watch one separate quarterback from the other 7 that we watched. So I did Miller Moss.
Yep.
To Jeremy's Carson Beck.
Yep.
7, I also had Nico Iamaleava. My 6 was Drew Aller. My 5 was Lenore Sellers.
Yes.
So as you can see, to start, are very different in our structured.
It will all make sense soon, though. I promise. I'll start with Carson Beck. His 2023 was pretty fucking awesome, and honestly, we'll see what he does in Miami. But he probably should have came out last year. Like for the 2020,
Absolutely, yeah.
2024 draft class, because The 2025 draft class, I don't know, man. He did lose a lot of talent. He lost arguably the best tight end in college football, the one of the best receivers, probably one of the
Yeah,
best.
one of the best weapons. Yeah.
I mean, he's arguably the top 4 weapon in that draft class. He was an elite talent. He was a blue chip player. So he lost him. Lad McConkey obviously did what he did with the Chargers. So he lost Lad McConkey and other guys as well. I don't know, man. I don't think he did himself any service with that loss. He did have a lot of drops, and I just think his reactions and his sideline demeanor, and I hate to put too much stock into that because obviously he can make all the throws. Obviously, when he's not flustered and things are going his way, he's an elite talent. You know what I mean? If he came out last year or if he came out after the 2023 season, he probably would have gone in the first. This year, though, I don't know, man. He had some inexplicable throws. A lot of the time, he was really inconsistent. It just wasn't first round talent, which is obviously why he went back to Miami. You know, he needed another year. He obviously had his draft stock at an all time high. Came back to Georgia for the next year, dipped it quite a bit. We'll see what he does in Miami, but I don't know. When things don't go your way and you kind of pout and get sad and you're the quarterback, you can either be a Will Howard, right? Or you can be, I don't know, there's a bunch of quarterbacks. I don't need to throw anyone else under the bus. But yeah, Carson Beck, I don't know. I just didn't when you draft someone in the first round, that's a lot of capital. So
Yeah.
just don't.
And it is like you said, it's like there's a lot to scratch your head about because he has put together the tape, you know? Like you said, 2023 was
Elite year.
unbelievable.
Elite.
Um, no matter how many weapons he had on the field, it was still, you know, quality tape. Like he was making good decisions. He was stepping up when he needed to. You know, he was a chain mover at times, and he clearly has the NFL IQ to do a lot of the things that you need to do as a first round pick. But now looking back, like you said, a lot of the and I hate to do this, but like a lot of the head scratching stuff is off the field or not necessarily football related stuff at all times. Like some of the character concerns that we didn't necessarily know that we should have been worried about. Like if he did come out that year before, like you said, would that have been, you know, just a thing we wouldn't be talking about now? But like you know, is he a good teammate? And then he's going from one of the best programs in football currently, and he's transferring to not that Miami's a bad program, but like he's ultimately taking a step down,
Yeah.
sticking around for another year. So it's not one of those like, oh, I'm sticking around to like prove it. You know, it seems very like uh it seems very much like a vanity move, and we're assuming a lot. Obviously, it's hard to not immediately jump to that, and I try to avoid stuff like that. But like, it's hard to not immediately jump to that, especially with like all the drama that has then corresponded since he's then gone to Miami.
Yeah.
There's been all kinds of off the field stuff with like
His
character
girlfriend.
stuff. Yeah, with the girlfriend and his behavior and the lifestyle and all of that. It almost feels like he should have just stayed put. If he was going to stick around for another year in college football, he probably should have just stayed in Georgia and said like, you know, I'm planting my flag here. I've been here. I'm going to stay here. Now, granted, he's played elsewhere before that, but like, it's one of those things where you would think you would just like stick it out there and figure it out, but like, and once again, I'm assuming an awful lot. I'm you know, taking liberties on my take with it, but it's hard to avoid, you know, focusing on that stuff with him.
No, 100%. I mean, quite frankly, good luck, dude. You know how many points you're gonna have to score.
Yeah,
And I get the situation. You know what I mean? The offense obviously was lacking at Georgia last year, so you want to go somewhere where
yeah,
offenses tend to flourish. But also, the defense is heavily lacking at Miami. So are you going to be able to Cam Ward your way out of a bunch of 45-40 games? We'll see. So, yeah, I mean, that's why he's at 8 for me. Again, if you had him after the 2023 season, if he was draft eligible, if I'm not mistaken, because he's a little older, depending on what he does at Miami. But yeah, first round pick easy after 2023. After last year, I don't know, like maybe a second rounder, take a flyer on him like a Jackson Dart, or third
Yeah, I
rounder.
mean, based on how everybody else fell, he could have been, a third rounder. But
Yeah, I'm assuming he went to Miami because his team was saying, "Hey man, you went from a bona fide first round pick to maybe a third rounder. Maybe you'll Shador
right,
Sanders. Maybe you'll put in yours." Right. Um, but yeah, I mean, enough about Beck, the eighth ranked quarterback in our 2026 draft ranking. Your eighth is Miller Moss, so you want to
yeah,
a little bit about that?
my eighth, Miller Moss. He's also a transfer. He transferred to Louisville. He did play at USC the last few years. Obviously, he was in a tough situation being the next guy up after Caleb Williams. It's not the greatest to have to follow somebody like that. Obviously Heisman Trophy winner, and now first round pick. But from all situations, what it showed, like, Miller Moss was supposed to be the guy. He has all the talent. Played a little bit in 2023, not a ton. Played in 24, started, quickly lost the job. He got benched for Jaden, yeah, after, about 4 to 5 starts. Like I said, he was in an incredibly difficult situation, so obviously there was a lot of pressure on him, and it's also USC.
Yeah.
USC quarterbacks automatically have a shit ton of pressure on them to begin with, and then you add in the fact that Lincoln Riley brought in his system there, so it's a big time show. You add in Caleb Williams. Um, he had a decent season. There was nothing. I hate to say there was nothing I really liked about him, but it was a decent season. There was nothing great,
Ed
but
hates
nothing
Miller
awful.
Moss.
Like it wasn't bad. I don't want to say it was bad in any way. There just wasn't. There was more to be desired in all of what I saw on tape with him. I'm interested to see him with Jeff Baum's system in Louisville. He showed out big time in the bowl game, playing against his new team, mind you. He went through for 372, 6 touchdowns. So like he showed that, like,
Yeah.
the light's not too bright for him, even though he didn't perform with USC as a whole. He showed out. And then in Louisville, Chuck just got drafted pretty highly for being an older quarterback that doesn't really have the pedigree. Like, he wasn't a guy coming out this past year into the draft combine even. That was a guy that people were really talking about much. Like, he's older. He doesn't really have anything that, like, wows on tape, and he went pretty high after playing in that system. So hopefully a guy that was a really high end prospect coming into college
For sure.
can repair that in Louisville with Brom. So I'm hopeful that, like, he can turn it around. From what I saw, like, he is. I know I'm going to abuse this a lot with a lot of these guys on this list, but, like, he's a chain mover, and I think he can uh, he can bring a lot to the table for Louisville, and I'm hopeful that actual draft season we'll be talking about him still in this top 8 as somebody that's competing for a higher slot.
No, definitely. Definitely. Because, I mean, like you said, he was the number 9 recruit in California. He was the 15th quarterback recruit nationwide. So he was a top, top recruit, right?
Yeah, right.
So he has the pedigree, and yeah, I didn't, full transparency, I didn't watch too much of him because we were gonna, like Ed said, back and forth. I did Beck to kind of cover a little bit more of our bases. Also a little miscommunication, but that that happens every once in a while. So Nico Iamaleava, I believe that's how you pronounce the name, is both of our number 7.
Yes,
I think
he is.
I think we both agree. I don't at all like what happened in the offseason. I don't like how he tried to.
Yeah, no.
I understand that a lot of the time parents and people and all that type of stuff get in your way, more or less, when you're these elite prospects. But I don't know, man. Trying to be like, hey, I need another $2 million annually when you have a contract signed for
Yeah.
3 years is to me pretty crazy. And I understand where he's coming from. They brought him to the NCAA tournament, you know. all that type of stuff. But at the end of the day, it's like, dude, you're making $2 million a year. And what did that get him now? Right? What did that get him? It got him
Yeah,
a
nothing.
play decrease at a worse school with less talent at UCLA. So it's going to be a big year for him next year. I mean, maybe he's not even in the 2026 draft class.
Yeah, he might not be.
One positive thing I will say is he is tough as fucking nails. He, from my understanding, I think the report was he went through 3 helmets the Ohio State game because 2 of them cracked. Yeah, I mean, to crack a football helmet, you have to get knocked the fuck around. It's not something, I mean, these things are made to be in car crashes. So the fact that he went through 3 helmets, well, 2, played the game, finished the game with his 3rd helmet is, I mean, you watch the game, he just getting his, Sawyer was knocking him, like everyone was just teeing off on the guy. Unfortunately, he
Yeah.
was the only one that came to play. Another thing for him, Heupel's system, the spread, it's not the most pro ready system. You're never going to have a box that empty because your wide receivers on both sides are pretty much at the sideline. That's not just, and then you don't have just full goes or post routes or like, I don't know. So, yeah, long story longer.
Yeah, there's definitely a stigma to that system
I mean,
coming into the NFL constantly, which is unfortunate. Like it's unfortunate, but Tennessee has that kind. I mean, you saw it with most recently. You saw it with Milton. You
just
know,
about to say,
Milton had an impressive offseason, in the NFL. But before that, like the whole draft process, the entire thing everybody was talking about was, system guy, system guy, system guy. Yeah, he has a big arm.
yeah,
Yeah, he has the traits, but like he's a system guy. That's what kept on falling on him was just he was at Tennessee, so he was a system guy, and
yeah,
everybody just falls to that, and that's going to fall to him too because for now at least, right now, like during this time frame in this conversation time, like that's going to be the talk because like until he steps on the field with UCLA, it's going to be like, oh, this guy's a system guy, like is he going to be able to do it in UCLA?
100%.
And you said the controversy off the field, it sucks because obviously, he's a kid still,
He's
so
so young.
it's a little bit different than Beck because Beck is obviously like an older prospect that like should just know better.
Yeah, he's like
And
23 years
the
old.
camp should know better too because he's at like a far bigger program too. Like he's at a top 3 program as opposed to Tennessee, which is like, still only like a middle ground program for the higher end stuff.
Yeah,
So it's like it's one of those things where like it sucks, but like with Nico, it's like obviously like I don't know if it's a parent or like a team, but
yeah.
like somebody they let him down there,
It sounds
whether
like
it was ultimately his decision in the end or not, but like
it sounds
somebody
like
let him down.
it sounds like dad. That's what I've. All the reports
Yeah,
are
and it sounds
saying
like
that his
it's
dad
happening a
was.
lot too. This isn't like an isolated situation
No,
because
not
like
at
the
all.
brother did this too, right? The
Yeah,
younger brother just did this. He committed somewhere and then asked for more money and ended up bouncing somewhere else.
yeah, and it's not. I mean, obviously, it's not the Iamali Avas. You have the Syracuse head coach that is like,
Yeah, there's a lot of people doing it. Yeah,
you're not Jeremiah Smith, bro. You're not getting
right.
$2 million from me. You're not making more than I
Yeah,
am, unless Jeremiah Smith or someone that coach. That just
yeah.
I forget his name, but he warmed my heart with that video, just telling that young buck exactly how it fucking is. And quite frankly, it sounds like someone needs to tell Nico exactly how it is. And
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
I
And
think,
they may very well do that now.
yeah, I mean, other than the off the field stuff is obviously the biggest issue that we both have, and it's just super immature. He's going to be turning 21 in September. So he's still, like you said, so young. But I mean, he has a great arm, and he can make all the throws. And again, he's tough as nails. So we'll see what he does at UCLA because it ain't gonna be Tennessee. You're not gonna have Dylan Sampson back there, or I mean, shit, even Zach Charbonnet. UCLA, great. Well, not great, but elite, elite draft prospect.
Just like as far as the tape that I watched too, I know you said it already. Obviously, he's a great athlete.
Of
He
course.
has the arm to make all the throws. He's got decent accuracy. The only thing I saw that obviously is a concern, like he was just super inconsistent
Yeah.
throughout. But like you said, he's still very young, so I mean, there's a lot that can happen. But there were just too many unknowns with the limited tape that he has, him being so young and being in the system that he was in and jumping to a completely different team. So I think once again, much like Miller Moss, like I said, we could be pleasantly surprised come draft season, and he could have climbed up our board and just kind of put all the issues to rest,
Of course.
and we could completely forget about this off-season conversation with the money stuff, and it could just be, yeah, this guy's a legit prospect, and he proved it at UCLA.
Well, in devil's advocate, maybe dad is saying, "Hey, you're a system quarterback at Tennessee. Ask for 4 million." In hindsight, maybe he says,
Right.
"Yeah, we just wanted out, so we made a ridiculous request and we got what we wanted. It was never about the money. We just didn't want to play in Heupel's offense anymore." So, I don't know. Hindsight's 2020. You could spin it that way if you want to, maybe if he balls out like you said at UCLA and all that type of stuff, but yeah, I think we both agree. Like I said, you said, Heupel's offense isn't the best for quarterbacks, whether it's Joe Milton,
Yep.
Iamaleava, or any of those guys. So we're gonna move on to six, and your six is a lot higher on my list.
Yes.
So if you'd like to start, PSA. It seems that I am a traits guy, and I like my quarterbacks being 6'5", 230 plus. So
It seems, yes, yes, yes. It seems, yeah. So Drew Aller is my number six, as you said. Our lists are kind of flip flopped, just kind of like turned on each other's heads.
100%.
But yeah, I definitely I like Drew Aller. I liked what I saw. I got to watch a decent amount of him being a Penn State guy. So I saw him a lot when he did play, Ohio. And then obviously they had a decent run in the playoffs.
Of
So,
course.
everybody got to see him a little bit too. Was that last game of the season pretty rough? Yes. Yes, it was.
It was
But
awful.
there's always going to be guys that have to finish a season that way. There's going to be a handful of guys in a college playoff situation that are going to have god awful endings to their years. But does that take away from his overall profile? No. All around, he's a great talent, huge arm, obviously a solid athlete.
Of course. Yeah, he was sneaky, honestly. He was
Yeah,
he's obviously not like some of the guys that we'll talk about later, like Levitt, Klubnik, Sellers,
yeah,
but he was
right.
or Manning, but he was I mean, he wasn't Peyton Manning or Tom Brady back there. You know what I mean?
No,
He could move around.
yeah, he doesn't lead with the athleticism, but he's capable of doing it. He's
Of
almost
course.
like kind of like how Howard was at Ohio State, where he's not the greatest athlete in the world, but he's not afraid to do it, and he's got more than enough athleticism to do it. Good football IQ to figure out the angles and when to do it.
Also, another thing, sorry, to talk about that last game. Notre Dame had a lot of talent on defense.
Yeah,
I mean,
yep,
outside of Abdul Carter, probably a similar amount of Penn State. So it makes a lot of
yeah,
sense. And then their secondary was really
right.
good too. You know, they have that one corner that's probably going to be a top 10 pick in what, 2026 or 2027. And then you had their safety play was good. Their safeties were good. And they had a couple linebackers. I think Kaiser was one of the guys. More on that.
Hmm.
Well, actually, he just got drafted. So not more on that in the coming months. But yeah, so yeah, do you want him to play the best against good competition? Sure, but
Absolutely, yeah,
it makes sense, like you said, that I mean, you can't be perfect every time. So,
right. Yeah, I mean, when he's in rhythm, he's fantastic. Obviously, there were some situations where when he got knocked out of rhythm, he had to kind of get his bearings and figure it back out. He's definitely not a finished product, but he's going into year two of system at Penn State. So hopefully he does take a leap, much like what we talked about with Carson Beck somebody like losing somebody like Brock Bowers the previous year. He's losing Tyler Warren, who's a huge chunk of that offense. Now, granted, they still have like, I know we had talked about this before the pod, and you had said this, like they've got like two solid running backs, and they do have a solid running game, but the wide receiver room is pretty lacking. They don't really have anybody on par with Warren as
Hit
far
that
as like
portal.
next in line.
Hit that portal.
So I'm curious what happens with that. Like I'm hoping he just like takes a step forward, steps up with it still being the same system, the running game still being intact. Ultimately, I liked him. He obviously fell down my list a little bit compared to yours, just because I did like a lot of what I saw from some of the other guys. He's got NFL talent. He can make all the throws. The turnover worthy throws were minimal, so
Yeah,
that plays pretty solid. And then he's got the arm, makes accurate downfield plays, and he can, like we said, he can run a little bit. He's got a physical build too, like you said, traits wise. He's pushing 6'5", 235. So there's a lot to like,
definitely.
and yeah, decision making wise helps out a lot too with the big arm. I think a lot of these guys aren't finished products
Yeah,
because a lot of them are pretty young, so they have that on their side, which is very good. So hopefully a lot of these guys improve, and we're looking at a pretty stacked draft class.
yeah. So he's actually my number 3 quarterback because I'm a traits guy. He's 6'5", 230 plus. And some of the other guys that are lower on Ed's list are a little shorter. Not that they're not great. It's kind of like pick your in my like you said. None of these guys are finished products. None of these guys, except for maybe our number one, our collective number one. That is one thing that 3 things we agreed on. We already went over Nico.
Yeah.
There's another one in there, and then there's another one in there. So our number one quarterback, outside of maybe him, everyone else needs a lot to work on. What I saw with Aller is his technique was kind of all over the place a lot of the time. It just wasn't consistent. But then you see these throws, and it's like, wow, that's on time. That's perfect. Literally very accurate down the field, whether it's intermediate routes or even on the deep balls and stuff like that. And obviously his talent around him didn't do him any favors, especially in the wide receiver department. It's easy to just spam Tyler Warren for 1,400 yards or whatever Tyler Warren had this past year. But yeah, I mean, he's a prototypical quarterback. He's got some plus athleticism. Obviously, not like the other guys. Even like Nico Iamaleava, he's below that level of athleticism, but he's sneaky. He can make throws on the run, which is obviously a plus if you're not Sellers running a fucking 4-3-3. But yeah, Drew Aller, I'm just a traits guy at the end of the day. He's 6'5", 230 plus. So that's why he's my number 3. And I think we could move on to number 5, which for you is...
For me, for my number 5, I have Lenoris Sellers from South Carolina.
Yes.
Another traits guy. Another one of Jeremy's traits guys.
I just see Josh Allen, man. Don't hate on me.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I did too. I agree with you. I'm not saying I don't. He was electric, man. He was really fun to watch.
Unbelievable.
But the arm talent is ridiculous, and then when he's on the move, it's just effortless. There's a lot to love about the guy, but specifically, we've unfortunately we've only got the single season sample size. That's kind of why I have him here. If I had more. If he had like 2 solid years of this, I would probably have him in the conversation like where you have him, and I would absolutely agree with that. He doesn't really put the ball in harm's way in any of the games that I saw.
Sorry.
The only things I really...
Did you said you watched the Clemson game because we kind of cheated with the Club Nick Sellers thing. Did you see him stiff arm that defensive lineman number 44 into Bolivian?
Yeah.
Just Derrick Henry style, straight to the ground. 44, I believe, is a defensive lineman, if not a very large outside linebacker for those watching. So yes, again, sorry to cut you off. Continue. I just...
Good. Yeah, no, that was perfect.
Had to throw that tidbit in there because, I mean, Jesus Christ, it was sneaky because I think it was for a loss and he was kind of running out of bounds, but I didn't miss the face palm straight to ground because it just talks to him being Josh Allen like. So I'm not trying to say he's going to be an all-pro. He's going to be Josh Allen, all that type of stuff. But, I mean, he's not at Wyoming and he's doing that to...
No.
Some of the better defensive players in the NCAA. So sorry.
Yeah,
Continue.
agreed. No, you're good. No, you're good. No, I just liked the fact that he's got a huge arm. He's a huge athlete himself. He does a good job playing out of structure. And like I said, he doesn't really put the ball in harm's way from what I saw. Obviously, once again, limited tape. He did have 7 interceptions, but like a lot of that wasn't necessarily completely on him.
Yeah.
Forcing balls here and there. The only things I did really see that kind of like stood out to me was on his deep balls, he did seem to kind of like sail them a little bit.
Yeah. He doesn't throw a
You
funny
know,
ball.
and it's one of those things where he's young. Maybe there's some things he can work on himself, or maybe it's timing things with his wide receivers. Who knows? And at times, like obviously, he's a huge athlete and an immensely talented, fast athlete. So like at times he did play a little too fast, where he did kind of just react. Like he was more reactive in a lot of situations, and I get it too because
Totally
like you
agree.
had said, he wasn't playing on the greatest team, didn't have the greatest offensive line. The defense isn't great, so he's probably on the field a lot more than he'd like to be. So yeah, I don't know. I saw a lot of things to love. And I would like I said, I'll beat this to death. I would probably have him much higher if I had more tape.
Yeah.
Like what I saw. If there were 2 years worth of what I saw, absolutely I'd have him much higher than 5 on my list. Um, but yeah, I'm excited to see him this next year. I hope he has. I haven't looked at the coming schedule, but I hope they've got a schedule similar to what he had this year because
I'll look that up.
I watched him against Ole Miss. I watched Clemson, Texas A&M, and Oklahoma. I hope he does the same because he had some pretty impressive games. I mean, he beat Missouri, he beat Clemson,
Yeah. Literally
beat A&M.
by himself.
And I mean, yeah, by himself. And then, I mean, he kept it pretty damn close with LSU and Bama. So
Yes. Again, pretty much
the
by
fact that he,
himself.
the fact, yeah, pretty much by himself. So I mean, the fact that he did that basically year one, not basically in year one, because I mean, he only had one game in the previous year. So the fact that he's doing all of that in year one, I know you said it kind of like jokingly, but like hopefully like the transfer portal was good to them. They brought in some more talent and maybe like, he'll be a little bit more gelled with the current talent that they had from last year.
Yeah.
Because if he can take any kind of step, he's easily going to be, a top pick.
So two things. I have their
Yeah.
schedule pulled up. Number
Okay.
44, Cade Denoff. Sorry, bud. 6'5", 255.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's like, yeah.
That's like a defensive end. Or not a defensive end, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. That's an edge. That's an NFL size edge.
Yeah, that's a legitimate football player. Yeah.
Sent to the nether
That's
realm.
not a corner. He didn't do that to a corner.
You know what I mean? Like, you see some stiff arms and you're like, all right, bro, you're much larger than that human. That was literally an NFL edge. And then two, so they got Virginia Tech, which feisty team, Vandy.
Yep.
We'll see with
Okay.
forgive me with his name, I forget it. Their quarterback, Pamia. I don't know.
Diego Pavia.
Diego Pavia. We'll see. I mean, he had that team. I mean, they beat Bama last year. And then you have you have Missouri. Obviously, it's South Carolina. You have Missouri. You have Kentucky. You have LSU, Oklahoma, Alabama, Ole Miss, A&M, and Clemson. I mean, the Coastal Carolinas in between A&M and Clemson, but like you're gonna get your wish, dude. That's a October. I mean, shit. The 20th to November 1st is a fucking or November 15th is a bloodbath. Missouri, Kentucky, LSU, Oklahoma, Alabama, South Carolina, A&M or Ole Miss, A&M, Ole Miss, and then A&M, and then they end the season with Clemson again. So that's he's gonna yeah.
And he's going to be playing head to head with some of these guys that we're talking about too.
100%. Nussmeyer again, and then
Nussmeyer, Mateer, and Klubnik.
Yep, Klubnik again. So that'll be cool because him and Klubnik, that was a really fun game to watch. I'm glad.
Yeah, that was. I liked that one.
I'm glad, but more on Klubnik after that. Yeah, I mean, so
yeah.
Lenora Sellers is my number 2. I just see Josh Allen. I know it's a lazy take. I know it's easy. I know all that type of stuff, but I mean, he's got an incredible arm. Yeah, he fails sometimes on the deeper passes, but like you said, is that receiving talent? Is that because he loved that tight end? And a lot of the times, like we said with Aller, a lot of the times when the quarterback loves the tight end, there's not much else going on in that offense, right? I mean, we've seen
Yeah,
even
right.
Pat Mahomes post Tyreek Hill. I'm curious if his perceived lack of going through his progressions are his internal clock speeding up because there was a lot. I mean, especially the LSU game, he had maybe half a second to throw the ball. He didn't.
Yeah,
Offensive line was awful, and clearly he didn't really have anything. But I mean, he's a playmaker, man. You know,
yeah,
back and forth,
yeah.
back and forth with Clemson. Him and Klubnik were pretty much just running down each other's throats. But yeah, he's my number two because again, I'm a traits guy. He's what 40, and he runs like you said. He's more Lamar Jackson than Josh Allen. He's an elite
Right.
he's an elite talent with the ball in his hands. And I mean, when we're saying single handedly, unfortunately, he doesn't have the opportunity to beat people with his arm because of the talent around him. But single handedly means he's running the ball a lot. And I mean, that QB power that they run, he's unbelievable. So I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, because he averaged 56 yards a game
Yeah.
on the ground.
I mean, that's Lamar Jackson numbers, right?
Yeah,
You
right.
know, so 56 yards per game. And then some of his, he took over the Clemson game. If he wasn't the quarterback, or if you had a different quarterback that wasn't him, they wouldn't have won that game. So yeah, number two for me. What was it? Number five for you. Our number
It's
four
number 5 for me.
is another SEC dog. We're gonna see how he does. He did lose a lot of talent. RIP, unfortunately, Kyron Lacy. That was a really sad development.
Yeah,
I wish, like Neighbors said on his pod, mental health is something that this podcast takes very seriously. It's okay to not be okay, and taking your own life is just awful. It's awful. Gone
yeah,
too soon. He should be playing in the NFL. As Malik Neighbors,
absolutely.
your dog said, him and Jaden Daniels should have taken him last year. You know, and unfortunately, the weight of the world, whether it be his, from what it sounds like, everything was on the up and up. He was going to get drafted. All the court cases and all that type of stuff was going to move through so he could at least play in the
Yeah,
NFL. I guess the weight of the world just built up. So it's okay to not be okay. RIP to Kyron Lacy. That was a very sad thing. But sorry for the bummer. But Garrett Nussmeyer,
no,
he's definitely gonna have to. I mean, you lose Will Campbell, you lose Emery. So he lost a lot on the O
yeah.
line. He lost a lot of receivers. Lost a lot of talent. Pretty much just all
Lost,
of them.
yeah, Mason Taylor at tight end.
Mason Taylor at tight end. So we're really going to see kind of what he's built by. I'm sure that program is going to rally around what happened with Kyron Lacy because it sounds like he was an amazing person. Just got caught up in some dumb stuff. But he's an older quarterback at 23 years old. Probably needs to add a little weight because I don't think he's much over 200 pounds from what I was seeing. We'll see when the combine measurements come out. He's about 6'2". He's pretty inconsistent, but he's a gunslinger, man. He's a
Yeah, he is.
he's a game manager. He can kind of get everything. He can get you what you need, but he had 18 turnover worthy plays according to PFF. Sorry if I know PFF is a very positive or negative thing for certain people.
Yeah,
So he had 18 turnover worthy plays and shows to his gunslinger ability. But yeah, I mean, it's his first year as a starter because he had to sit behind Jaden Daniels. And from what I saw, he's probably going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the draft next year. You know, he's got a great
yeah,
name. He can make all the plays. And I mean, what did you see? I'm sure a lot of the same stuff. And
yeah. I mean, just pure passer wise, he's absolutely the best passer in this group. I mean, like, you know, head and shoulders above everybody else. He's a prototypical pocket passer, but he's also tough. Like he's
yeah,
not.
he got knocked around, dude.
Yeah, he got knocked around. He's not. I don't want to. I'm not going to use anybody as an example, but he's not one of those pocket passers that's just sitting in there and getting their shit rocked and getting their. Yeah, I don't want to be like Joe Burrow or throw it like a random. I don't want to like throw somebody under the bus. He's got a great looking ball. He's got the best looking ball in the class. Everything's a tight spiral. Even when he's like squeezing those things into tight windows, like you said, the 18 turnover worthy plays, but on top of that, like the big time throws, he was, I don't know if he was top five, but he was up there with turnover, not turnover, the big time throws. And then he was top five passing yards, going well over four, not well over, but going over 4,000 yards in the season. He can improve on the turnovers. It's not like he's got all that far to go to make those changes. There's a few plays here and there getting from that like 12 interception down to like a single digit. He doesn't need to make a huge leap to do that. And I don't want to call him a statue because he's not a non-athlete. He's much similar to like we had talked about with Aller and comparing him to like Will Howard, but like obviously Will Howard ran a lot going back to his time in Kansas State before he went to Ohio State. I think Nussmeier has the capabilities to kind of be a chain mover at times when he needs to be, and he can probably keep the defenses a little bit more honest if he does that here and there. He just didn't really he scrambled 15 times on the year. And like a lot of the players that we're talking about in this group are doing that in a game
Yeah.
sometimes.
I mean, Sellers.
So yeah, easily. So I mean, he's a great quarterback in rhythm. Obviously, it's a lot of these guys need to be in rhythm. It's just how the game works. But like if he adds if it it's not going to take a lot for him to kind of jump up because he does have those prototypical traits that the NFL likes. Like you said, he's about 6'2", around 200 pounds. Maybe when the combine comes around, he's going to need to add a little bit of weight because I'm always concerned when I see those weight listings because they're always kind of padded a little bit. So if like he's listed at 200 pounds, maybe he's a little under that. But he does look like a bigger guy. I do
Yeah.
give that. Like I don't think that may be a concern because he looks like he's a pretty solid dude. But like,
He doesn't look like Dylan Gabriel up there behind that
yeah,
Oregon
exactly.
offensive
So
line.
like when he's in rhythm, he's fantastic. He's next level. He stands in the pocket, like you had said. He's tough. He can make all the plays out of structure too. And then on top of that, his dad's an NFL coach. His dad's the OC in New Orleans with Kellen Moore now. So I think he could be elite. He's got the head on his shoulders. He's got the capability. Like we said, he throws the best ball in this group that we're going over. So I liked him coming into this year. I like him a hell of a lot more now too. And I think, if he improves with the interceptions and the turnover worthy plays, just fractionally, not even like a huge jump,
No,
like
it doesn't need to be crazy.
a fraction of an adjustment is going to make a world of difference. Because like being a gunslinger doesn't have to be a negative thing. Like Josh Allen improved on that. A lot of guys have improved on that. Some guys have just stuck with it to a fault. But there's certain guys that they can figure out where they need to be, squeezing stuff into tight windows and where they shouldn't, and just kind of take the neutral play. I don't know. I like them a lot. Obviously, he's one of those guys that can move up the list a lot with slight changes, but he's got everything it takes to be a solid NFL quarterback.
Yeah, I think. I mean, there's no reason why he wouldn't be a first round pick. To be quite honest, especially with after this year's draft class, it's like a first round pick, and then yeah, you guys traded back up into the second to kind of get Dart up there, but or slow or slow Shuck, same thing. Sorry, Tyler Shuck.
Good old Tyler Coleslaw.
Yeah, can't know them all. And to be fair,
That's
last
right.
year we didn't do this, so
Yes.
I would have been, though he probably wouldn't have been on the radar, but also,
Yeah, I doubt it. I hope not.
but or you hope so because he went in the second round. You know what I mean? Or no, did he go in the first?
No, he went in second.
Yeah, second to the Saints. So you guys already know. Sorry, completely agree with Nussmeier.
Yes, we were spot on with each other with Nussmeier.
Yeah, I think we're kind of on the same page at that number 4 spot. So you guys already know my number 3 and my number 2, which would be Drew Aller and Lenore Sellers. Again,
Yep.
I am not going to say that. I am a traits guy.
Traits guy.
Yes, that is much better than what I just thought. And I apologize. I am not going to say that on pod because that is fucking embarrassing. So your 2 and 3, or your 3, I should say,
Yes.
is
Yeah. My 3 is Sam Levitt, State. It's funny because like I remember watching Arizona State through the playoffs, and
Yeah, great team.
sadly, my focus was never really on Levitt himself. I was aware of him, like to me, like in the back of my head, it was more like a game manager situation because I was so focused on the weapons and more importantly, Scatabo. But I mean, it like I said, it's like we were talking about like obviously having like kind of polar opposite lists here. My 3 and 2 were two guys that I wasn't hugely familiar with as far as like their play itself, and I walked away loving both of these guys. I mean, Levitt specifically is a baller. Like he just a I know I've said this multiple times on the pod already. Like he's a chain mover. He made all the yeah, he's absolutely a gamer. He made all the throws. He was accurate. He's got a solid arm. And he's super involved as a runner too, which is amazing with the backfield that they had. Even with Scadaboo, who was just pounding the rock on that offense, Levitt still had 110 attempts. He averaged 34 yards a game, and that's with a guy like that in the backfield. Now, granted, that could be opening up that a little bit. We'll see how that translates without the defense having to be kept honest with a guy like that. But yeah, it was amazing to see him hit the ground running as a runner. You know, and just as a quarterback. I mean, he transferred from Michigan State and he hit the ground running immediately. Like he was, he had an 80 plus grade for PFF as a passer and a runner, which is pretty impressive because usually most guys are like one or the other. Like he didn't throw for a ton of yards, but he was competent. 60 plus completion percentage. Doesn't really turn the ball over, like 1.1% turnover worthy plays. Like
He's
you can't ask for anything better than that. That's borderline flawless.
100%.
And then when he was running, he had 34 missed tackles on the ground.
Yeah.
Like, and he's not a Josh Allen, he's not a Lamar Jackson, but like he's a well above average athlete, and he showed that. Like, a huge reason after watching all the tape and watching the playoffs and watching the games that I did, he's a huge reason why they went as far as they did.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to see him with a Scadaboo less backfield because this year's on a team like that. I hate to say this because I just went through all this and I said that like I love this guy, I like him as
Yeah.
a quarterback prospect. But this year's really a sink or swim year for him
100%.
because they went so far. They had a successful playoff situation. They had such a good bowl game and excuse me, and he had such an impressive year, but he's at Arizona State. It's not the biggest. It's not a power. Yeah, it's not a powerhouse school. He's not one of the names that I think most people have in the top 5. I think I'm kind of, a contrarian in that, but it's kind of sink or swim, He's got to kind of take a big step to be in the conversation, or I think he probably does slide big time if he takes a step back or really doesn't improve in any way. So I really hope he keeps the momentum going, and I think he's probably one of the better athletes aside from Sellers, really. I think he's probably, if Sellers wasn't in this group, I would probably say he's the best athlete
Yeah,
in this group.
it's up there between him and Klubnik, honestly.
Yeah, I would say Klubnik's in that conversation, obviously, because he's, an immense
A1B, and then, well,
athlete. But
Sellers is one because he's an alien.
yeah, oh well, that's why I said if
Yeah,
Sellers wasn't in this group.
yeah. No.
Excuse me, but
Aside
yeah,
from Sellers.
I was really pleased with Levitt. I really,
Well, and
so I'm really interested to hear what you have to say about him.
I think so.
Knowing where you have him.
Yeah, it's just because he's 6'2", 200 pounds, and I understand he's 20 years old. I saw everything that you saw, and quite frankly, some of his so he lost Jordan Tyson, their like number 1 wide receiver, on what does it say, December 2nd, and so that means they played the Big 12 championship game, which I did watch. And then they played their bowl game or their playoff games as well. And I mean, they went toe to toe with Texas. And I understand, yeah, you look at Scadaboo and he pretty much helped them will the way to that game. But at the end of the day, Levitt also made more than enough plays to help keep them in both those games. And well, actually,
Yeah.
they smacked Iowa State if I remember correctly. But it's just impressive, man. He's an impressive guy, and if he was 6'5", 230, he would have been higher up on my list. And quite frankly, I don't know. Thinking on it now, like maybe he should be at number 4 where Nussmeier was, or maybe even number 3 where you have him with Aller is, because I don't know. You just make a lot of good points, and it's all stuff that I saw. I mean, he's highly athletic, like you said. He can sling it. He can make pretty much all the throws, honestly. So yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
he's 6'2", 200 pounds, but he is just, I don't know, he's a gamer, like I said earlier. And I am excited to see him without Scattaboo, because obviously that created an entirely different dimension. Hopefully he doesn't kind of like Sam Howell or Drake May esque, lose some, like you said, take a step back. But no, I'm rethinking things. Maybe I won't be such a traits guy moving forward
There's nothing wrong with that.
in our next
It's
list.
paid off in the past.
Well, that's the thing. It's like how many quarterbacks are 6'2", 200 pounds in the NFL? Unfortunately, there's a reason why traits work. And that's because there's not many quarterbacks I mean, yeah, it's like Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray. I think Lamar Jackson's around 6 foot, but he's also 215.
Yeah. Wilson.
So Russell Wilson, if he plays this year, I don't know if he will. I don't know. Jameis might be taking that spot.
He'll start at least.
Famous Jameis is
Who knows?
the spot.
Who knows if he'll finish the year?
famous Jameis is going to get QB1 because Malik Neighbors is going to be like, Russell Wilson does not throw over the middle of the field. I need somebody who's going to just yeet the ball in my direction, and I'm going to catch it and go for 700 yards a game. Obviously, that's a joke. But yeah, Sam Levitt, completely understand why you have him so high. Because it makes sense. And so your number 2 is...
Number 2.
My number 6.
It's your number 6.
I didn't watch enough of him, it seems. What I saw is he's can make all the throws, but I put too much... It seems like I put too much stock in his level of competition. Because like Washington State, who are they playing? And then you brought up some very good points about OC, going to Oklahoma, obviously being SEC.
John Mateer, by the way. Mateer.
Please, I don't want to take your facts.
No, I didn't want to. I just wanted to throw out the name because we're
John Mateer. Oh, yes. John Mateer, the quarterback, not his offensive
quarterback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So number 2, John Mateer. The floor.
Yeah, number 2, Mateer. I loved him. I also, like, previous to this, this exercise, I didn't have a ton of exposure outside of the Boise State game. I hadn't watched any of his tape coming into this. I obviously did see his Boise State game mainly because of Ashton Jeanty. So that was what kind of put him on the map for me. So I was aware of him. I wasn't familiar with him, but I was aware of him. But yeah, I'm just gonna come out and say he's a star in the making for me. I loved his tape. He obviously transferred from Washington State. The tape we watched was from Washington State. He's now at Oklahoma. He follows Ben Arbuckle, who was his OC in Washington State, to Oklahoma. So,
which also, as you were mentioning, was the same OC with Cam Ward.
Right.
So clearly there's a...
So in saying that, like, there's a connection there. Obviously, crazy competitor, elite runner, right up there with Levitt, who we just spoke about, Klubnik. They're not on the same level as Sellers, but they're chain movers.
They're white. It's okay.
Yeah, great passing on the run too. That was another thing with him I loved, was like passing on the run out of structure. He was amazing, incredibly accurate outside of the structure.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Obviously, very similar to like what I had said with Miller Moss. He went into a situation where he was following a guy that like had a lot of hype behind him. He went into Washington State, took over for Cam Ward, who had an amazing year in Washington State before going to Miami.
Yep.
And there was zero decline. There was not a shred of offensive decline on that team. He came in and he was not only did he keep the offense at a level, but he was also just making the same plays that Cam Ward was making. So like it wasn't just like here's a guy that's capable of running the same offense. It was he was running the same offense and making the same plays. Like the rushing touchdowns, he had a rushing touchdown in all but one game. You know, going to Oklahoma, like I said, he's going to be with the same OC, so the continuity's there. This isn't like a strange jump. Most other people we talked about, like Nico, and he's jumping from a very QB friendly system in Tennessee to what the UCLA system is. And some of these other guys are shifting gears and going to different programs. And who knows how long it's going to take them to hit the ground running. With Mateer, we've seen him in this system with Washington State. It's now going with him to Oklahoma. So as much as he has to gel with those players inside that offense, but he'll already have a leg up on the offense itself,
Exactly.
on the terminology, on how it runs. And on top of that, he led the FBS in total touchdowns, but with his passing touchdowns, and he had 15 rushing touchdowns. He ran the ball 178 times, 826 rushing yards, 15 touchdowns, averaged 68 yards a game. So, like, going to a team like Oklahoma, obviously, like we had talked about this beforehand, Oklahoma doesn't have an immense amount of talent going in, but he also didn't have an immense amount of talent at Washington State. So I'm excited to see where this goes. I really do think he's going to be in the conversation. I think it's going to be really difficult for him to get into the first round because I don't think he's as flashy of a prospect as Cam Ward is. But I think he is, like I said, I do think he's a star in the making. But I think he still has a steep hill ahead of him to get to the first round. But I think he can, um, if he continues to do what he did last year.
Yeah. I mean, who did you say threw the prettiest ball in this class? I think it was,
Nussmeyer.
I don't know, dude. Mateer might.
Yeah, I mean, he threw a great ball.
Yeah, it's no, it's picking. Sorry, and I was trying to see who he had on. I mean, he had our dog Alec A. Maynor, Alec A. Maynor, A.O. Maynor. We referenced him in our wide receiver
Who did?
rankings for this past. You did, right? So he played for Washington State. So he was on Washington State last year with Mateer.
No, he was at Stanford.
Yeah, no, wait. Oh no, so he played at Washington State with.
Washington State was Kyle Williams. He had Kyle Williams.
He played with, sorry, Cam Ward and him played at Washington State. A Maynard transferred from Washington
Yes, they made a
State
transfer.
to Stanford. That was my misconception.
Yes.
Sorry, I was
Okay,
quickly
sorry.
scanning through stuff to.
But Mateer did have Kyle Williams.
Yes.
Who just went
yeah.
pretty high
No,
for the
definitely.
Patriots.
I mean,
He's gonna be a great
he's.
piece.
I mean, he's fast as hell and looks like a great deep ball. And again, talking on Mateer, like that deep balls, it's very tough. That's one of the harder things to do as a quarterback. And yeah, I completely agree, man. His highlights are pretty high, and he doesn't really have many mistakes. And like you said, with his rushing ability plus his passing ability, or maybe he's not going to have 15 touchdowns in the NFL, but if he could even have 8, right? Because that's what you said. You said 15 rushing touchdowns last year.
15 rushing touchdowns. Yeah.
So like even if he has 5 to 8, and he has better talent around him, and he throws for even more touchdowns, it's like, I don't know. Yeah, I get it. And also for me, he's not 6'5", 230.
Yeah, well, that's the other like the only other, and this was kind of part of the thing that I was getting at with the draft stock. Why he's going to need to like really kind of step up a ton is because like he's listed at 6'1". All these other guys are listed at 6'2", so like there's that wiggle room there.
Is he going to be 5'11"?
Yeah, like who knows? Like he's listed at 6'1", 220, so like he does look more solid than a lot of these other 200-pound guys. So that's like one good thing he's got going for him. But that will be one of those things that gets discussed if he is on the if they're pushing it with the 6-1.
Of course.
Um, but yeah, I like I said, I can't help but say that I loved what I saw, and it's funny that he's going to Oklahoma too, because the entire time I was watching Washington State, all I could think of was kind of a more athletic Baker Mayfield.
Whoa.
Which if he goes to the right place, it's funny that he's going to Oklahoma now.
Whoa. That's actually a pretty solid comp because
Yeah,
he's got an arm. He can make all the throws. He can do everything that he needs to do. Plays with on time. I mean, there's a reason why Baker went first overall, right? And thankfully, the Browns didn't ruin him completely, and now he's had his resurgence in Tampa. But that's actually a good comp, and it's a fair comp, right? You don't have
yeah,
to say, "Hey,
right.
he's Steve Young."
Yeah,
He's one of the greatest quarterbacks ever that has 4 Super Bowls. Baker's actually a really good comp, to be quite honest. Which, for a multitude of reasons, good for you. Look at you. Look at us. Look at you. More importantly, but look at us getting legitimate comps that aren't just Hall of Fame players. So all you have to do, Mateer, is live up to Baker Mayfield, and you're chilling. You don't have to live up to some of the like Sellers has to be Josh Allen. Who would you rather have to be, Baker
right.
Mayfield or Josh Allen? Enough jokes. Our number one guy, I think we both. I didn't expect him to be my number one, honestly.
Yeah,
And I kind of switched some things around because of our yap prior, because it makes sense and it seems I'm easily influenced. But honestly, Cade Klubnik is, in my opinion, going to be the first quarterback taken in the 2026 as it stands right now. A lot can change in a year. We're just after the draft. A lot can change in a year, but I mean, he is sneaky athletic. He's got a pretty good arm. He doesn't have a cannon like some of the other guys, but I think my favorite part about him is that he's very decisive. Whether he's scrambling, whether he's making throws, all that type of stuff, he's just boom, boom, bam, run or throw the ball. There's a couple plays where it's if he wasn't as decisive, like pulling it, whether it be an RPO or anything like that, there were some plays where the window would have closed if he didn't move as quickly as he did, and he was poised under pressure. I mean, I think there was a pick that bound. It was a bad throw, in full transparency on the South Carolina game, but he drove straight down the field. Sellers scores on that rushing touchdown. Klubnik drives straight down the field, throws a pretty bad pass behind his running back, number 7. I think it's Mafa, I believe. Kind of had to turn back, tips it to the linebacker, I think Demetrius Knight, and ball game. But I mean, they started at the 20, poised under pressure. You like to see that, right? Because you have other guys like, I don't want to say Will Howard because he clearly performed under pressure, and that's a bad example. But you have guys like Carson Beck and stuff like that. Iamaliava, which also isn't necessarily fair to him. But yeah, I think Klubnik. I didn't go into it thinking Klubnik was my number one quarterback in this class in May, but I came out being like, hey, he's elite, dude. He's a good.
yeah. I'd agree with you. He was the biggest riser in this group for me. Because like I probably coming into this, I probably had him in the middle of the pack, just because I didn't watch a ton of Clemson this year. So I was just in my head, I was thinking of 2023, and if you go back to 23, which like what I saw, because I watched a little bit of 23 to compare this too, was like he didn't do an awful lot. He was more of a game manager. They didn't really take any risks. He didn't really do all that much. And then 24, this past year, really showed why he was like one of the highest rated players coming out of high school.
It's
So he was a huge riser from this group. Probably the most improved. Like I would say, he's absolutely the most improved out of all of these guys
absolutely.
year over year.
I mean, that's the thing, right? And that's so maybe Dabo wasn't entirely wrong about his style of program and wanting to do it the old way because he wouldn't have presumably the number one quarterback in the 2026 NFL draft if he did it the new way, right? It's
Right.
a turnstile. Oh, like Ohio State or Oregon. It's like, who's the next guy that we can, you know? So, there's nothing wrong with that. Ohio State just won a national championship. You know what I mean? And you have Michigan, who had J.J. McCarthy starting. So that's more of kind of what Dabo was doing, and all that type of stuff. And yeah, I think that was the most impressive thing for me, is that 2023 he did not look good. He wasn't anything special, and then
Yeah.
the improvement between 2023 and 2024, like you said, was substantial. And then, I mean, what, 28 big time throws again if you follow
Yeah.
PFF.
Top 5. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a fantastic stat. And I don't think his turnover worthy plays were very high either. So to have
No.
many big time throws with not that many big turnover worthy plays shows that he's the high end variance of what a gunslinger can be. You know what I mean? He's taking
Yeah.
risks, doing all
Right.
that type of stuff, and
Yeah.
not taking. Well, I don't want to say he's not taking risks, but making incredible throws down the field. He's pushing the ball down the field
Right.
in a conservative,
Yeah, and at, like, for example too, like going from 23, his passer grade was 63.9. He jumped to 87.7. Like that's a huge jump
it's a huge jump.
when you're going from being more conservative to being more aggressive. Like usually it's the other way around, you know what I mean?
100%.
Like he improved as a passer and took over games way more than he was. Cuz like I wouldn't say his tape was bad. I wasn't down on him because like I thought he was a bad prospect. He just wasn't really doing much. The offense didn't run through him necessarily as most top prospects it would. And then it just like flipped on a dime. He's got the good size, he's got a great arm, he's great in rhythm, solid anticipation. I went from being really low on him to like being incredibly high on him. Like I said, he was the biggest riser in this group for me. Also, like Cam Ward and Shadur Sanders are the only quarterbacks that threw more touchdown passes than him in college football. So like that right there, like going from nothing to being in the conversation with two guys that were arguably, you know, talked about as the best quarterbacks in this past draft.
Yeah.
And then, you know, this coming year, he's got the most loaded offense of all of these guys that we're talking about.
Yeah.
He's got easily 3 to 4 top flight wide receivers. So, he's got everything in front of him to be that guy. Like we've both got him at number 1 because like on tape he looks like that guy. Then on top of that, he's in a major program. He's got major program pieces. So like I don't see any other like all these other guys like I would entertain a conversation to say like this list could end differently. They could fall in different places. I'm 100%. I would lock him in at number 1. 100%.
Yeah.
There's no chance any of these guys are going to end up ahead of him to me.
There would need to be a monumental shift in a lot of these
Yeah.
guys, because a lot of these guys are raw and all that type of. You know what I mean? They all have things that they need to fix, which everyone does. Everyone
Right.
has flaws.
Yeah.
But we're also.
I don't know if he does, honestly. I don't know. Like, I didn't see a ton of flaws.
I mean, dude,
I don't know if you saw differently, but
36 touchdowns, 6 interceptions.
yeah,
That would have been like top 5 in the NFL this past year. You know what I mean?
right. Yeah.
I don't know,
Yeah.
man. I just
Yeah, I didn't see. I couldn't find
and
an
he's
awful lot of negatives. I didn't write anything down at least, and I don't remember anything.
and when
to be honest with
you spoke about him being in rhythm. When he's in rhythm, dude, he's just boom, 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 boom type of stuff. His offensive line gets a little better, and he starts
right, because like pure talent wise, like he's
all of these guys.
I know on my list I have him at number 5, but like pure talent wise, like that guy's got the most talent on this list.
Well, and honestly,
but I think right now as like a finished product,
100%. Klubnik's
the one guy that I would point to and say like this guy's a finished product more than anybody else.
He's as it stands right now. We'll see after the 2025 season, but as it stands right now, he is by far the most finished product. He's the most pro-ready product. Because that's another thing too, is that like Clemson is a pro system. right? That was the big draw with Trevor Lawrence, Debo Sweeney, like all of these
Yeah.
guys, Deshaun Watson, all of these guys. Those are the over the years during the Clemson dynasty and all that type of stuff. Like that's the draw, is that he's in a pro program. He's running a pro style offense, more or less. I know they have some flair, but I mean, quite frankly, what is a pro style offense anymore anyway? Like I know,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
you got Buffalo running QB power and Lamar running RPOs, and Lamar, Kyler, and some of the more mobile quarterbacks running RPOs. Like it's like your Texas Tech or whatever. Or I guess that would be more the air raid, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I get you.
I think, yeah, just honestly completely agree. And he was really impressive on the ground.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
That's what I was kind of. I mean, obviously he's a great quarterback, a great prospect, but for he was a I mean, he was pretty much keeping up with Sellers on the ground, like blow for
Yeah.
blow. Because I think in that game he had
Right.
he had multiple rushing touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me see, 2024. Yeah, he had 7 rushing touchdowns, and probably 3 of them in fucking a South Carolina game. Not
Yeah.
really, but you know what I'm trying to say. But yeah,
No, yeah.
and then to your point, so I'm looking at the 2022, 2023, 2024. So he had 120 passer rating, which game manager, all that type of stuff. He only had several starts, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, he only had 100 attempts, 61 completions. 2023, obviously more than that. He had 454 attempts. His passer rating was 126, so game manager esque. But this past year, it was 148. That's not far off from like a pretty perfect passer rating, right? Because I think it goes up to, and that's over the whole season. So just to give you guys something else, the PFF haters out there to look at, I mean, his completion percentage was 63. No, like you already said that, but I mean, 36 touchdowns, 6 interceptions,
Yeah.
and
And he's got the weapons, and they've got a great team as a whole too. Because I mean, next year this draft itself is going to be littered with Clemson players.
yeah. Well, and Debo is starting to fiddle in the portal now. He's learned that if he
Right.
wants to win a championship,
Yeah.
he might need to evolve at least a little bit, right? Good thing he developed Klubnik, because now they have probably the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft next year. But
Yeah.
worst case, get some guys. You're Clemson.
Yeah.
You deserve it.
Make it happen. Figure it out.
But that wraps it up. That wraps up our summer scouting 2026 QBs. Our top 8. Obviously, they're very different, but everyone's going to have different people, different places. Everyone has different flavors, all that type of stuff. We'll see who's closer, and that's another thing. We'll see who's closer when it actually comes draft time. We'll definitely have another
Yeah.
pod and bring this back
We'll
up.
see why I was right.
Yeah, we'll see how dumb I was about everything that I said. Sellers has 75 interceptions and gets sent to the sun out of South Carolina. He has 75 passing interceptions, or I guess obviously, but
No, but I will say I do agree with you on Sellers because, like I said, I would have had him much higher if he had more tape.
yeah, we'll see.
I think pure prospect wise, I think he's got the highest upside out of anybody in this group.
Yeah, but could also just be Anthony Richardson 2.0.
Who knows?
That might actually scare the NFL, but yeah, sorry. We
Yeah.
digress. That wraps up 2026 QBs. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. I think that's what everyone says. And
Smash those likes.
smash the likes, comment, all that type of stuff. Thank you again for watching, and we will see you guys next week. Speaking of which, running backs or wide receivers?
Yeah. Let's get those weapons.
All right, so
Wide
we'll
receivers?
go, yeah, wide receivers. Fuck it. Next week, look forward to same kind of format, 8 wide receivers. This time we'll probably look at the same 8, or maybe throw some curveballs in there. But again,
Who knows?
thank you guys for watching.
Thanks for watching.
Appreciate you. Have a good rest of your night or day or whatever time. Bye.